Hello everybody, it's Mr. Second Amendment, and today it's MilSurp Rifle Range Day. So we got some of the rifles down here that I'll explain. I got Range Chris in the back, he's joining us for this, setting up the targetry. The way this is going to work is we're going to shoot these various MilSurp rifles. Each of us are going to do 10 shots on a target at 50 meters with each rifle. Just to kind of get some feedback, also you guys can check out in terms of looking at these guns being shot and actually taking them out to the field and enjoying them. So let's get to what exactly did we bring out today. All right guys, from right to left, we got M1 Garand, Yugo SKS, we've got a K98k Mauser, we got an M39 Finnish Mosin, we got the M44 Russian Mosin, and then we got the 9130 standard Mosin that most of you probably have. We got my Ishapore 2A1 Lee Enfield and 7.62 NATO. We got the No.4 Mk.1 Lee Enfield. We've also got two AKs to test, Range Chris's AK and then my Wasser 10 on the left. So that kind of fits in that category. As a control group, brought out my M4 clone. Both of us haven't been infantrymen. We are very experienced, or at least familiar, on an M4 AR-15 platform, especially one that looks like that. That's going to be the only one that has a magnified optic today. We wanted to showcase an aim point on top of an AK versus just iron sights with the AK. And the rest of these are just standard in their standard issue configurations. And again, each of us are going to be shooting 10 rounds out of each rifle. And we're going to be comparing the targets, going to be checking out the groupings and how we did. So let's get to it. All right guys, with the ammo apocalypse going on right now, we tried to do the best we could to replicate a service load for all of these, or at least what was issued with them, based on what we had on hand, what we had to go get. So for the M1, we got the S&B. This is going to be the 150 grain Garand safe stuff. For the SKS and the AKs, we got the Red Army. It's the steel case, but it's the lead core, at least makes it range safe, so easy to shoot out here. For the Mosins, we're going to have the PPU 7.62 54R. This is the 182 grain, just lead, brass case, pretty good stuff than it's used to. For the Mauser, this is the only one we have match rounds for. So this is Hornady 196 grain. This is their boat tail hollow point. So a little bit of an artificial edge for the Mauser, but that's kind of the best we could do. For the Ishapore 2A1, we got standard M80C. And then for the AR-15 or the M4 build for the control group, we got Winchester 5.56, their 193 offering. And then lastly, we got some Remington Full Metal Jacket 303 for the Enfield. But what are some preliminary thoughts before we do any shooting?
So I've shot almost all of these rifles before, at least some iteration of them, if not these specific rifles. You know, a couple of them are mine, so I hope I shot those before. But I think the Finnish Mosin is going to do really well, just because the way the Finns rebuilt that rifle, and historically speaking, just what they did to modify it and improve it. I think the Enfields, both versions, are going to be really good. They're going to be very accurate. I think our control, we couldn't ask for a better rifle because we have the M4. It's pretty much a military service rifle.
Yeah, and that one's configuration. That one's a BCM complete upper too, so that's, in my experience, I have pretty good time with that one.
I think the AK with the red dot is going to be a little bit of a cheater because it does have a red dot. I think my AKM is just going to be way off, which is the underfolder. Just, you know, wide groups, iron sights, AKM. It's pretty much bare bones.
What's the one you're most looking forward to shooting today?
Probably the M1 Garand.
So this one is Range Chris's M1, and you haven't shot this thing in a hot minute, right?
I haven't shot it since about the second week after I bought it in Tennessee. So it's really not used to this dry desert elevation that we're currently at, so I don't really know where it's going to go. I didn't exactly spend a ton of time on it while I was out there, so we're going to see how it goes. And my last prediction is that the SKS is probably going to be kind of wild because the stock has been cut down for a much shorter shooter than Mr. 2A and myself. So,
well, they typically, especially the Chinese SKSs, they do typically have a very short length of pole just by way of how they were.
Still, I think that's going to be our biggest wild card. So, Mr. 2A, how do you think today's going to go?
I think it's going to be really cool. These guns here, either me or Range Chris, we've had these for years, but some of these I haven't shot in quite a long time. So I'm looking forward to it. some of these other guns, when we're doing, each of us are going to be doing 10 rounds today. So when we're talking about shooting the the garbage rod, the Mosins, we have 3 flavors of Mosin. The only one I'm really looking forward to is the M39. But we're going to start stacking up a little bit of recoil today, which shouldn't be a problem. Hopefully it doesn't affect our groups or testing in terms of just kind of getting tired or worn out. Definitely look forward to the Garand, and also the Enfields too. My No.4 Mk.1 and also the Ishapore 2A1, for the caliber that it shoots, I've always remarked, or I've always thought that it just, maybe there's something magical with the geometry of the stock or anything else. They're not super heavy compared to anything else we have out here. And for some reason, it just doesn't, the recoil just doesn't feel like it's all there based on what you're actually shooting. So I think I'm actually interested, for you, what you're going to say about it. But yeah, this should be a good day. I think what we're going to do is we're going to start out with the control group, which is going to be the M4 clone. It does have an ACOG on it. It's more just kind of what Range Chris and I are used to in terms of our backgrounds, but also the M4s we had in the Army pretty much looked like that. So we'll just give it a go and just kind of use it as a control group.
Okay, favorites and probably what you think is the biggest wild card.
Let's see, the wild card I think is probably actually going to be the M44. Just because, man, it's been, you guys have seen on my channel here, my run and gun video from years ago, and I did it with the M44, and from then I noticed it was shooting kind of high and to the left. So Range Chris and I we're just going to aim center of mass on these targets, and we're just going to notate where it's hitting, also group size. But I think the M44 is going to be, SKS probably second place as well. But yeah, the M44, that thing is, the fireball and everything involved in that, it's probably going to be pretty stout.
And we are going for groups, not necessarily scoring.
Yeah, we're not going for point of impact as much. We will talk about it in a later video that we're going to do after this, but we're really going for group size and just the overall shooting experience of each of these. So I'm excited.
Well, I got you on camera. Any disclaimers that you might have for today?
Yeah, so we are not sponsored by Springfield Armory or Ishmash or Steyr or any of the companies that produce this. Not sponsored by Magpul. We're just 2 guys that just want to enjoy some military surplus rifles, and despite the ammo situation, everything else going on, we just wanted to make this happen for you guys. And also, can't lie, it's gonna be pretty fun today. So yeah, that's about it.
All right, any final thoughts, or are we let's get to shooting?
Dude, let's just send it. All right, guys, so I know some people are going to be asking, we're using Birchwood KC. This is their 50-yard small bore 8-inch target, so you can see there. And again, we're doing this at 50 meters, so you can see we got some set up, and we're going to start with that control group. Yep, it's going.
All right, we're hot.
All right, guys, so here's what happened. We got Range Chris on top with his 10 shots. Just had 1 flyer, but everything else was in the black. And my group was not so good, but I also was just kind of pushing through it. And I was also a machine gunner, where we have like lots of rounds. So I guess it's a good reason. There's a lot in the mag.
M4 was my bread and butter. It was literally, I'm probably the only infantryman who was like, oh boy, M4s! Everyone else was like, why don't we have a better service rifle? So, I don't know. Maybe that played into it. I also took a lot more time on my shots than 2A did. So, there's that as well. And I'm a big believer in nice, long, slow trigger pull.
Yeah, where's the 240 at, man? I feel out of my league right now. Okay, we're going to keep pressing. Yep.
Mr. 2A's AK is kicking brass out. I don't know, this looks like a good 20 feet. I think it's getting way out there.
Dude, it's an AK. It throws brass into orbit.
But the important thing is we found them all. So.
There you go.
Yeah, I'm way fucking...
We're also gonna, just as a side note, we're gonna clean up some of this before we leave today. Just trying to keep our public shooting area clean.
Always be responsible.
Yes. Okay, so got Range Chris on top, and then myself here on bottom. I don't know, I've always thought, as much as I hate AK iron sights, some of the ergonomics could be a little better. I've always actually liked the standard AK trigger. Generally, for me, it works out better than standard mil-spec AR trigger. I've liked it. But yeah, I mean, that is effective. That's the size of my hand right there. You guys saw the measurements earlier, so looks like it needs to be adjusted a little bit to the left, maybe a little down, but also we got this ammo just for this, so it was zeroed in on other ammo. So, but overall, there you go. I'm curious to see how it's going to do against your AK with irons. So
I can guarantee you this is going to do better than mine.
let's check it out. So what's going on?
So
Excuses?
I asked you,
Yeah, I'm just kidding.
it's not an excuse, I asked you if you dialed the dot back at all. Because from when you first turned it on, I dialed it back one quick.
Well, it's, I mean, when I received it right after you shot it, it did seem a little bright. So I brought it down one, we probably look at least one, maybe two clicks. So maybe that had something to do with it. You had a little star cluster.
You would have been using a much finer dot at that point. But
yeah.
honestly, comparably, those are not bad. They're pretty much, like center of impact is pretty much right on top of each other. My group is just wider, but that could be any number of things.
But that's definitely thumbs up on the Aimpoint product line and also RS Regulate.
Red dots are good.
Red dots are good.
So not only does this have 2A's favorite iron sights on it, it also has his favorite kind of stock as well. He loves these underfolders.
Absolute trash.
You're trash.
We'll see.
All right, so underfolder iron sighted AK.
So there's a couple things I hate. Starting with, we'll start with the back. See, well, you know, it's got a stock, which is great, but there's a little bit of, you know, wobble. You could drive a truck through that. Iron sights, they're okay. They're bad. Sight picture on an AK, it's the sight rate. It's not really the sight radius right now on these. It's the fact that it's forward of the receiver with a tangent sight. It's everything you just don't want, but we're going to try to make it work. So here we go.
Well, it's perfect if you're a conscripted service member.
Just, yeah, go out there and just get results or something. Good luck. Oh boy, this is so ergonomic. That shoulder stock is really comforting.
Isn't it? It's got that nice 550 cord though. You know, I gotta say, I'm proud of both of us because we're both not flinching on that last trigger pull.
Doing pretty good. Yeah, that 550 cord custom job here, that's kind of essential because it was better than most underfolders I've ever shot. Still not great. Stock is a little pokey, but definitely if you have, yeah, that's my favorite right there. But if you got something like this, probably want to do that 550 wrap. What do you think?
Well, absolutely. If you're going to do an underfolder, you need to find either some cardboard and some electrical tape, or a 550 cord wrap like I did on mine.
Did we take the cleaning rod out to shoot it?
No, the cleaning rod was in the whole time.
Oh, okay.
But with this Midwest Industries rail, it doesn't really seat too good. So you'll see it on one of your shots where it pops forward just a little bit.
Well, it's an AK, 550 cord, cardboard, duct tape, and...
I also want to compliment both of us on our wonderful paint jobs that we both did on the...
Oh yeah, man. So it's spray paint is life. Rattle can for days. And it doesn't take a lot of materials and expense. But yeah, let's go check out the target.
So AK, traditional iron sights, underfolder stock, not the most accurate thing in the world. Red dots are good.
Red dots are good. It's awesome.
I held my post about right here doing a lollipop, and I got 2 off paper, but everything else is just a little bit high, which is not bad because I'm using the battle sight 0 on it, which is as far back on the adjustments as it'll go.
Because you have so many options with those iron sights.
I mean, you know, it's either that or 100 meters, 200 meters, 300 meters, et cetera, et cetera.
So from my group, I was actually lollipopping as well. And we ended up hanging out up here. So I was taking over Range Chris's target, got one of these dudes here. I'm pretty sure that's from my group. But I mean, what is that? 8 or 10 inches high at 50 meters?
It's probably about 6 inches high at 50 meters for you, and maybe about 4 inches for me.
Okay. Now, interesting kind of feedback. Having iron sights for one rifle and 2 different guys versus having a red dot or optic. We had some pretty good experience with that ACOG and that aim point. But now we have a variation of point of impact just based on that.
I do also want to say this, coming from our background and what we did. This is good to go. This will kill a human being. Just saying.
I mean, that's, yeah, combat effect.
Shoot somebody coming into your house, like, okay, you're not going to hit him dead set in the sternum. You're going to pop him in the heart, which is not bad.
Definitely have combat effective zone. It's not pretty, let's put it that way.
But it's definitely not pretty. But that's okay, because
right.
they're AKs.
All right, so we didn't bring any stripper clips for anything. We just brought the M blocks for the M1 just because it needs it. So we are single loading 10 rounds at a time in here.
On the SKS, right? That's what this is called?
Yeah, it's the SKS. That's right, the
SKS.
SKS. There we go.
And this is a Yugoslavian rifle, correct?
It is. It has grenade launcher apparatus, one of the scary features from '94, and it also has grenade launching sights, just like that, which is really cool. And yeah, it's there you go. Sure. So, kind of going back in time here, predates the AK design. That trigger is super money, being very sarcastic with that. But kind of an interesting rifle to shoot. So anytime we chamber around on SKS, there is a possibility you may have a slam fire. So I'll get back here. All right, we didn't ND, that's awesome. Or that would be an AD. Okay, I'm gonna set it down and do your thing. We have no idea, neither of us have shot this one yet. What do we think so far?
We made mashed potatoes the other night that were smoother than less mashed than this.
Probably one of the only SKSs in known existence that is not in a Tapco stock.
Okay, so
but hey,
coming off the target.
Real quick, we do have the last shot hold open on SKS.
So coming off the target, I'm gonna say this: we need to take another target down there with us because I know exactly where it's heading, and I'm gonna leave that as a surprise for you guys. So this is where my post was. I lollipopped it just like on the AKM with the iron sights, and here's my group.
So we are shooting low, which we could mitigate that by adjusting elevation a little bit, raising it up a couple notches and see if that helps. You know, I think just to keep the test going, I'm gonna do exactly the same and just lollipop one maybe to the left, and then we'll just kind of see what we end up with.
I do want to say left and right's good, and I'm happy with kind of my group size. The trigger's mushy, and it does have it kind of feels like, for lack of a better term, two-stage. Like there's definitely a wall setup.
Maybe some of those on top were kind of your initial shots, kind of getting used to that trigger. Range Chris and I have not shot this rifle before today, and right now we didn't even dry fire it. So we're just kind of sending it, but I think we're not going to change the sights. I'm just going to roll with it. I'll aim for the one on the left, and then we'll just kind of see what happens.
And well, we'll see if those flyers are repeatable with you as well.
Yeah, I've got one. Another observation right here. I got it right there. Another observation is the SKS is not launching brass into orbit like both AKs. Mine was actually the worst, but brass was not too far away, if that matters, or shooting brass case stuff on a reload. So kind of an interesting note.
Yeah, let's keep going.
Yep. I'm really not looking forward to doing this with the bolt action guns. Probably not the best shooting position in the world. We're just out here to kind of gather some feedback, unscientific data on everything that we're doing. And as a side note, going back to stripper clips, they would have 10 round stripper clips that feed into the bolt carrier. So you'd just do that in one go. But now, there we go. Yeah, that trigger, I almost thought we had a jam because I couldn't, it felt like something jammed. I couldn't get that trigger going. All right, so kind of going back to what we were saying about the optics, red dot, or some kind of scope versus just using iron sights. I think if you have LASIK, contact lenses, glasses, astigmatisms, there's going to be, I think the difference is going to show up more with iron sights. So I was aiming for this one. I was doing the lollipop 6 o'clock hold right here, and I was actually pretty much there. I did have one go off the paper right there, but Chris was doing the same thing, but his rounds were kind of falling low. So thankfully the windage is actually not a big deal. At least for me, this would start to show up 100, 200 meters. But overall, we're still seeing combat effective zones. You know, this one, maybe Chris, if he was issued that rifle, he would maybe bring up that elevation, call it good. For me, maybe I'd do the same, not as bad, but overall pretty soft shooting. Actually softer shooting than the underfolder AK. Definitely. I think it's really just that buttstock. But
yeah, it's probably going to be the second softest thing that we shoot today.
Yeah, it's only going to get worse from here with the M1 kind of saving us a little bit. Other than the M1, it's all just yeah.
Wood and steel.
Wood and steel.
So performance, how do you think this is doing anyway? Just like outside of like a combat effective, just like a, you know, daily shooter.
I would say everything we shot so far is producing combat effective zones. We are having some point of impact shifts on some of these, which are correctable and adjustable. Depending on what it is, adjusting AK iron sights or the SKS, not going to be as easy as maybe adjusting AR iron sights or the M1 iron sights. But at least the groups it's producing, the shootability of them. The only thing I've hated so far was the underfolder. Everything else has been workable to this point. The trigger on that SKS is awful though. That is awful. And you saw it, but I thought we actually had a jam because I didn't feel the reset. And it just turns out it's kind of like a Smith & Wesson M&P reset where it's there, but you don't feel it. I don't know. But yeah, we're going to reset and then move on. So have you ever shot a Lee Enfield before?
I have shot one at Oak Tree, which we had as a rental, which I believe...
Wasn't that the pattern 14 though, the 1917?
I couldn't tell you. You would know specifically.
Yeah, so this actually being a traditional Enfield pattern, I'm kind of interested to see how it's going to go. So we just loaded the mag like that out of convenience. It was typical. They would actually use charger clips or stripper clips, in this case on the Ishapore 2A1. So yeah, man, just send it. As we're moving into these bolt guns, of course, we're having the brake grip every time to actually cycle it, so we'll see if that has an effect.
Already feeling it.
Recoil?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. How was that?
The trigger on this is fantastic. It's got a solid setup, clean, crisp brake. And once I kind of got a little bit higher on my elbows, recoil was completely mitigated. This is a dream. Shooting this thing is amazing.
Yeah, couldn't disagree with that. All right, so we actually decided to shoot this one next. This one was produced in 1966. This is kind of a weird one because these are built to the old school No.1 Mark III star pattern, so the World War I Enfield, but they are originally chambered in 7.62 NATO. It's not a conversion. So we'll see what we got. Yeah, we may have to bring up that forward rest here.
Always remember to hydrate, guys. Always remember to hydrate.
Looks like your point of impact and point of aim was pretty good on that. I was kind of giving up stability on those last shots. I think that's probably some of my final shots, but overall, I mean, we're still doing the combat effective zone on everything we've shot so far. But then again, everything we're shooting today was at one time, or still is, an issued rifle somewhere. So yeah, I think a little better stability and maybe some elevation adjustment. I'd be good with this. What do you think?
Well, I'm not big on the surplus game. They're not my surplus rifles are not my forte. But if I was listening and had watched these videos and had seen the 2A video on the Ishapore, and and then I saw this video, I would probably go out there and try to get me one because you couldn't be happier with these results.
It's pretty awesome to have an Enfield like that that's chambered at a caliber that, at least under normal times, finding 7.62 NATO is not usually an issue. So it's pretty cool to take them out and do testing like this and kind of see, as modern day soldiers and infantrymen, what are our thoughts moving back on something that we've been shooting here, of, how does it handle the ergonomics of the sights, and just would it be something we'd want to be issued, or if we just kind of wrong place, wrong time, that's what we got issued. Not a big fan of the sights on the Ishapore, but they are precise. That front post is pretty thin.
It's a very thin blade front post. I did lose it once, and before I even pulled the trigger, and kind of honed in on the sight guard on the side, and was just like, well, that's too big. That's not what I was just looking at. But I honestly, it's just a guy. It's just a dude, might be looking to pick up a surplus rifle. Some that's a shooter, some that you could just take out and just do field stuff with. Absolutely, this is a great gun.
Oh yeah. Okay, so we have on the No.4 Mk.1, we got the battle sight, which is a pretty generous aperture.
Our groups have been pretty big, but I can drive a Mack truck.
But you also have the long distance option, which I don't know what it's actually going to hit right now. A little bit tighter on that sight picture, so this would be for obviously precision or distance, but this is just kind of how it was all the time for general battle zero use and just low light conditions. So
just trekking through desert, swamp, and wherever else you might be. Fucking
yeah.
Flanders field, as it were.
Just want to use it the way it is?
Yeah.
All right.
Did you adjust that front sight at all?
I did years ago, but it's honestly been years since I've shot this one, so
because it looks pretty far to the left.
That's what it needed, at least back in the day, so we'll see how it's doing these days.
A little bit of a safety use there, guys. Check
Yeah.
that out. It's pretty keen.
It's yeah, pretty easy to take it off safe as a right-handed shooter, so A little bit of an ejection issue on that one. This one, I think it's good if you just like just retract it. Both Enfields are not really launching shells out as much as they're just kind of falling out. Yeah, on the Enfields, I think you really just gotta ram that thing back.
Not my preferred way of pulling trigger, for sure. Oh. Guys, I'm just gonna tell you now, I'm feeling it.
The recoil?
Yup.
We still have all 3 Mosins to go.
Yeah, I don't want to think about that, but thank you.
All right, round's complete. What do we think?
Trigger's not as good as the Ishapore. Recoil's a little bit harder, but it's the 303. That rear aperture is
huge.
Fucking huge, man.
It's huge.
So big.
Yeah.
Pardon my language. And the trigger, man, that Ishapore spoiled me. I feel let down.
So we just transitioned to the sketchy ammo cam with some towels. Another thing is when you guys are loading anything with a rim, whether it's Mosin or in this case 303, you always want to make sure that rim is in front of the previous one so you don't have rim stack or lock up the gun. Some guns have what they call an interrupter to help you out. The Mosin allegedly has one, but you can still definitely get rim lock on a Mosin. So I'm just kind of advancing forward and pulling back as it's going in, just to make sure I'm not doing any rim lock business here. Okay. Yeah, that trigger just comes at you. Okay, so how did this go?
Well, I did the same lollipop hold that I've been doing the whole time on the top center target.
Okay.
And I'm pretty happy with my group size.
It's just,
So
we
the
are
placement is way high.
super high.
I'm about 8 inches from dead center.
So you said you are not really super in the MilSurps, or at least, you know, today is really cool, but it's not really been your thing.
Yeah, no, left and right's good though, which I thought, you know, might be an issue with how far left the front sight post is adjusted. But outside of that, I mean, you can clearly see where the center of my group is. It's very obvious where my center of my group is. However, I was holding that post down here, but with how large that rear aperture is, I think that's kind of what screwed me over. Is I'm not used to it. I think I could probably adjust it, and if we had more rounds, but we just.
I mean, it's pretty severe. Out of any rifle we have out here, that rear aperture has the largest aperture. Again, we could do some testing, flip up, you know, the actual long range sight, which closes it in a little tighter. But we're just using everything kind of in its standard quick and ready configuration. I did know that I think that rear aperture is, and Lee Enfield collectors will have to comment, but I think that rear aperture is actually sighted in for like a 300-yard battle zero. And if that really is the case, then that would explain what happened here. And so my impacts on the left happened because I was actually aiming for the bottom one, kind of anticipating we were going to have some issues there. So we kind of had the same 8 or 10 inches high effect going on here. Group size, I think, is, you know, combat effective zone. It's acceptable. If you're aiming for a man-sized target at 50 yards, both of us would have made hits, depending where we're aiming. But yeah.
Action's pretty smooth. Trigger has no real setup.
It just goes.
Flows all the way back. So there's no real, you know, way to creep it straight back. Because once you start pulling that trigger, it's just going to keep coming back until it fires.
Yeah,
it's nice and it's not. It's not what I would prefer. But
definitely takes some time getting used to that. If it was, you know, our issue rifle, but there it is.
And these lightweight wood stock rifles are starting to.
Oh yeah,
to play.
we got it.
We're only 2 in.
We got to get that Mosin train going.
Man, I'm not looking forward to that.
Just want to get it done out of the way. Well, let's start with the most common garbage rod out there, the 9130. A lot of dudes have these hanging around. For some guys, might be the only military surplus rifle they own. Definitely got to get it represented. Then we'll move on to the M44.
You want to shoot the jank stuff first, just to get it out of the way?
Yeah, let's shoot the jank stuff out of the jank rifle. We've encountered the first hallmark feature of most Mosins, that you really got to beat that thing open or closed. Really, it's uncocking it. And if ever a bolt action rifle probably should have been a cock on closing, it might have been the Mosin pattern.
So, back in the oak tree days, once upon a time, a million years ago, customers would just bring these in to the rifle range all the time. And the cool thing about the Mosin-Nagant, if you know anything about the Mosin-Nagant, is it's a rifle you actually have to prep before you shoot, because these things are stored in cosmoline. And the cosmoline soaks into everything, and it jams everything up because cosmoline is horrible. So I nicknamed the Mosin-Nagant at Oak Tree the red-headed stepchild of the rifle world, because you literally have to beat it to get it to work.
Oh yeah, that's looking great. Perfect. Here, struggle bussing. Just watch, yeah. Here, that's your hand. Oh, Jesus Christ. Okay. Administrative break, hold on.
So one thing I will say about the Mosin, if you're going to own a Mosin, you're going to shoot a Mosin, is these lacquer cased steel casings are hot garbage. If you can get brass, get brass.
But hey, this one has a laminate stock, so it's good.
Put that in quotation.
Down the trigger. So this is probably the worst case I've seen. The rifle needs to be cleaned out of cosmoline. The ammo we're using, as Range Chris said, is not ideal, especially if you already have cosmoline jammed up in there. So definitely going to want to clean it when you initially get it before you even attempt to shoot it. So yeah, that inflatable ISO mat here, not going to be holding air again.
Provided by the wonderful United States Military Army.
Yeah, it just needs, that chamber needs to be cleaned out once we get back.
So I would say the chamber needs to be cleaned, the bolt needs to be sweated. There's a little bit of external rust, which I'm going to take to mean there's probably a little bit of rusting on the inside.
Yeah, I'm going to get this thing out of the stock and just do a thorough cleanup on it.
But as you guys noticed, I had to hold it, slap that bolt up, and then we had to mortar it down. Like that's pretty bad. Normally you can just swipe it back, but that's why I call them the red-headed stepchilds, because you literally just have to beat that thing into submission.
So I'm going to see if the brass case can help me out. Maybe show you what the Mosin will look like when the chamber is a little cleaner, or you're using more quality ammo, or better quality, I guess. So let's see. All right, so again, we're going to worry about that rim stack. Just making sure we're putting one rim in front of the other. All right, let's see. Let's see how we're going to do here. little bit better.
I'm telling you, those lacquer cased, man.
I just want to get it over with.
Just mortar it.
Oh.
Hey, good news. You're halfway there.
Oh, yeah. I think I'm going to try from a kneeling position now. That is just straight up god awful. In a prone position. Let's try and get it done. All right, thank God we were done with this thing.
So, what'd you think?
Dude, that was so bad. Because that was awful. Part of the problem is you will see that's not the most comfortable butt plate in the world. And yeah, some of that's a little janked up. So, geez. In terms of the sights, the hooded aperture, not a big fan. Being forward of the receiver, not a big fan. It got the job done, but it's not something I would take if I had a choice.
Blood, sweat, and tears, guys. Blood, sweat, and tears. All right.
I think I definitely scored an impact somewhere in your group, and it's kind of hard to tell because half of that was prone, the other half was kneeling, just to get some reprieve from that butt pad. It's awful. Oh. Stuff is happening downrange. That's good. And maybe if you...
No, there's one. That's we didn't count that one.
Did we...
Ooh, yeah. No, we did not count either of those two.
So basically between just that complete shit show of mortaring it, dealing with the bolt, that horrible recoil on that butt pad, going from prone to kneeling and just trying to make it work, we got pretty much... It's like 1.5 feet, maybe almost 2 feet kind of cone. It's just like a beaten zone of just like stuff is happening here. For me, if we can even gauge it, it was a little high and to the right. And for you, it was actually hitting relatively just paper, but God, that was awful.
Well, you were also, I mean, the Mosin trigger is let's not mince words, absolutely terrible. So when you hammer through that and you just try to shoot it fast, you lose all semblance of accuracy, because especially from the kneeling and sitting like we were doing, you really get some bad wobble, which, as you can see on my target, is pretty spread out. But I was firing a lot slower than 2A. So
definitely, if I was issued that as part of the Red Army in World War II or something, I would be doing anything and everything I could to get my hands on literally anything else before doing that. Even discounting the bolt, let's say there was no cosplaying in there, we had relatively decent ammo, so we weren't having to get all jammed up with that action. Still, that is not awesome, let's put it that way.
Well, a little bit of American history regarding the Mosin-Nagant, recent history. These rifles used to sell at Big Five for $89.99.
I bought mine for $80 back in 2007. Yeah.
And you, as most things in the gun world, you get what you pay for, guys.
Yeah, and also that's kind of a remark on the MilSurp market, because now that same Mosin would be going for like $250. So, you know, if you look at an old Mauser or a desirable military surplus rifle that was sporterized back in the day, you know, like, oh, why did they sporterize them? Because back then they were super cheap, they were super common, they were actually ergonomic and desirable. These days you got Mosins that are, the value is going to keep going up, believe it or not. So that just kind of shows what happens to the MilSurp market over time.
Yeah, they're not making any more from 1944. Just
no, and I don't think anyone would want to make a reproduction. It just, I wouldn't buy it.
Okay, so is this the M44, right?
Yeah, M44. It's got the bayonet that's affixed to the rifle, so you can deploy it or leave it stowed. I think we should just shoot it stowed. I think that's how most of them would have been. Pretty much more of the same. This one, I cleaned the Cosmoline out, and we're going to be using the brass ammo. So
comparatively, this is glass.
Yeah, we should have a better time. The ergonomics on a Mosin, we were just talking about it, really, it's best if you shoot it from like a seated, benched position or just straight up standing. Shooting it in the prone is not ideal. Let's put it that way. All right, so same rules apply, avoiding rim stack. There are stripper clips for the Mosin. I've bought them and used them in the past. Honestly, they're not my favorite, being a rimmed cartridge. It's actually better just to single load them, says me. This one's gonna have a fireball, and of course gonna be a little louder. Let's see if I can get it on camera. Even in broad daylight, I've seen fireball from an M44. How was that?
Not bad.
Okay. So now we're seeing the Mosin action kind of how it should be when it's clean. So we can start picking up speed too on it. It actually lets us do that. So what do you think? Standard Mosin or M44 if you had the choice?
I will shoot this rifle all day.
Okay, something just changed in terms of the ergonomics, recoil. Okay, what do we think?
Compared to the full-size Nugget, it's night and day. This rifle is smoother, the trigger's better, the recoil feels more manageable even from the prone position. Sights are pretty much the same trash. Ergonomically, it's the same trash.
And this individual one, it's cleaner, and we were using brass ammo, so this is kind of the best we're gonna get on a Mosin action is kind of what we just saw.
3 out of 10, thumbs way up.
So I think I'm just gonna shoot it like you did. No support, just hanging on.
It's a pretty comfortable way to actually shoot this rifle.
Which one did you shoot at?
Top center as usual.
Okay, I'll go left top. This one's actually okay. So yeah, we're still kind of doing the cone of fire, beaten zone kind of effect. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Just 5 right there, and then it kind of blends in right here. I think these are probably Range Chris's hits right here, but yeah, at least from an end user perspective, it was better. I felt like it was workable. So yeah, I think if you really spent time with it, you could dial it in. I was also shooting really fast, and you picked up your rate of fire too. So
I did, but you know, with the way you have to work that action,
it's
you just speed up.
Ideal for putting some kind of optic on it and taking one shot and just getting out of there, just like they used them as sniper rifles, the full-size ones. But yeah, not either of those is not something I'd actually want to have for sure.
All right, well, let's move on.
All right, so we got the M39 Finnish Mosin used in the continuation war, and they essentially just took Russian rifles that they had or acquired or bought before the war, the winter war, and they basically just made the best lemonade out of lemons possible. So the Finnish Mosin is supposed to be kind of the Cadillac of the Mosins. I've experienced that through shooting them, but yeah, you've actually been looking forward to this one, getting us out of hell on the Russian ones.
I have. I think this is the best way for us to end the Mosin kind of debacle.
It was, the Mosin so far was kind of like a shit sandwich without the bread. So hopefully at least we get some bread and some toppings on this maybe.
Definitely need to work that action a little faster.
There we go.
I can already tell you, Ryan, I'm going to be super happy with this.
Nice. So far, so good.
I am so happy right now.
This one's actually doable, right?
Not only am I fucking loving this rifle, but I can already tell where my group is because there's a big giant yellow splotch in the middle of the black.
So you really like this one. I can already see that you had good impacts, and I just lost my forward support there. So I'm just gonna get that back real quick. Also has this groove in the stock. It's actually kind of nice, like ergonomic. It's not just like a broom handle. It's just, man, instant night and day on the recoil impulse or how it feels. You could shoot this all day.
I wish we had been shooting this all day.
Okay.
So, Finnish Mosin-Nagant, night and day, literally.
Yeah,
Man.
that's your group right there. And then the zero for me, I was a little high and right, but everything was kind of concentrated about the same group size, just a little high and right. So what do we got to say about that?
The Finns know how to take a bad situation and make it good enough that they can defeat the people that invented the rifle, defend their country against literally the USSR, and I mean, the results speak for themselves.
They certainly did what they could in the winter and continuation wars, but seriously, that's not only was it like pleasant to shoot, where even after all the Mosin recoil, we were still like, yeah, we can shoot this thing. But you know, bullets don't lie. That is a usable, effective zone. Especially if you get that thing tuned in. It seems like the zero is perfect for you.
The trigger, yeah, the zero was great. It was, I mean, I got one flyer, which it's still in the ring, so I'm happy about that. The trigger is amazing. Like I slowed that trigger every time. I worked the action quickly and then took a breath. So took my time on each shot, and I think the results show there. I would love to see what this rifle could do at 100. I'd love to see what it could do at 500, 600.
Oh yeah.
I'd love to take it out. I'm very thoroughly impressed. It met every expectation I had for it.
Yeah, no, I loved it ever since I bought it years ago. But at least for me, I would readjust the zero, but we can tell right here, the group size, just the ergonomics of using it. I think the one and only complaint that I have is that front sight is a little bit thick.
Yeah, you could probably shave it down. I mean, it worked well for me, so I don't even know.
Yeah,
that's shooter's preference.
This definitely, I think, deserves a highlight or a chapter 2 on the Finnish Mosin by itself. Go out, take it to some range.
I mean, it's a Nagant, and I wouldn't mind shooting it, so that's the highest praise I can give it.
All right, now we gotta move on to the Mauser. All right, so we got the K98k, and actually, you guys have not seen this on the channel. This is a BNZ 45. It's a Kriegs model, Steyr produced K98k, and this thing is what they consider kind of a last ditch hurried production kind of gun, and it still does pretty nice. So yeah, it's on you.
Still hooded sight, barleycorn, good rear V-notch.
Yeah, not a fan of that front sight, personally.
Good natural point of aim.
Oh yeah. So what do you think so far?
So far, so good. The trigger's nice. I don't like the barleycorn or the hooded sight. V-notch is good, like I said. Trigger's good. Recoil is manageable. I kind of wish we had shot the big Mosin today. It'd be a little bit more fun. Need a little bit more elevation on this thing. Oh. Gosh, that probably pulled it.
Oh, that bolt action is back in the land of quality. So how are we feeling after shooting all that?
I'm beat up. My shoulder's starting to hurt pretty bad.
Yeah, that's we can definitely thank the Mosins for that. I think if we did not do the 9130 and perhaps the M44 and we removed those two from the pool, I think we'd still be doing just fine. But like, yeah, I feel the hurt as well. This is just beating you to shit.
However, the trigger on this is probably one of the nicest we've shot today, if not the nicest.
Cool. All right, so a couple things just changed. No more rimmed cases to worry about rim lock. And the stripper clips on these, if we had them, they're pretty fast. And the action is nice and smooth. Front sight, definitely not a fan, but it's workable. Try holding it up here. Also seems to have a pretty short throw. I mean, obviously I have to break my fire grip or fire control grip on it, but it's not as bad. Very ergonomic. Well, definitely it was smooth. The recoil was not a big deal, just like the Finnish Mosin, for what we're sending down range and how much weight and mass and pressure is going on. Doesn't quite feel like it. Kind of like the Enfields as well. I think if we had started with that, we would have been horribly disappointed with what was going to come. But yeah, this one feels pretty good. This one actually was pretty good. You did a pretty good job there, just keeping that all together. What sucks about this kind of testing is we're just doing back to back to back each rifle, especially with the travesty, the experience we have with the Mosins.
Mosin debacle.
The Mosin debacle, getting out of the woods on that. Definitely feeling that pressure. For me, I could tell this vertical stringing, I think, is just simply the fact that I was doing most of those shots towards the end, getting off the rest and just freehanding it. But you know what? All facts considered, I mean, what do you think? I think it's a pretty combat effective zone.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it's a great rifle. It's a fantastic rifle.
Oh, yeah.
And I apologize, guys, if we're getting a little less wordy as the day goes on. We've been out here a couple hours, not hydrating enough. You know, we got to get some food in us soon. But yeah, no, it was a good day. We're doing some good shooting, and I think we're getting some good results.
Yeah, that K98k, that front sight it's not ideal, but it still is workable. If it had a front sight like an M1 or an AR, where it just kind of goes out, but there's no hood obscuring your vision, I think that'd be preferable. At least I'd like to see that. But the rear sight is a good notch. I don't like its forward of the receiver, but for what it is, obviously workable. Yeah.
All right, let's get on to our last and final rifle, and one that's probably going to be a great pleasure to shoot.
All right, final rifle for today, M1 Garand. So we're gonna load 2, let it eject, and just load 8. So you're gonna want to just get the clip stuck on the bolt face, or you can do that.
I don't know how to do this shit.
Yeah, so push down on the follower, and then get the bolt. There you go, that's fine. And then just pull back and get out. Perfect.
Oh my god, it's actually got surface area, it's comfortable, it's ergonomic.
Just like the Finn Mosin, it has kind of that pistol grip kind of stock into it.
See that flinch?
A little bit. All right, what do we think?
If you told me I had to go to war right now with one of the rifles that we shot today that was not an AK or an AR, I'm taking this.
Yeah, I don't want to be biased here, but that's how I think this is going to go for me as well.
I will be just as combat effective as I would be with my M4, I think.
Yeah, at least you wouldn't have that big of a deficit on firepower. Practicing loading the clips, you can actually make it pretty fast. Recoil, after all the other recoil you've done today?
So I'm shaking a little bit, just from the bruising in my shoulder, I can already tell. Had a pretty decent 6 o'clock hold. My group is tight enough that I can see it from here, just with my plain eye, and it is a little bit low. So I think if I had bisected the black, I'd have been a little bit better off. It's probably about 6 inches low, but
I think that's what I'm gonna do. I'll just cut the target in half.
She's a shooter, man. She's a combat rifle.
Oh yeah. All right, so in terms of partial loading these, I like to just put the clip kind of in, and just the clip is kind of stuck. These ridges on the back kind of help you do that. And right now we're just pushing them in until we get all the way down in there, just like that.
All right, what do you think?
Oh yeah, yeah. If we had to rule out the AKs or the M4, and we had to pick something to go to war with, like right now, definitely the M1. The sights are a dream in terms of the rear aperture, behind the receiver on the back end, the front sight just like that, perfect. There's no hood in the way, and just all in all, even after all the recoil that we felt today, this honestly wasn't beating me up that bad at all. And that's after all the stuff you've already seen. So I'm interested to see how our targets are gonna look. All right, so here's what we got from the M1. So range Chris, you were shooting on the right side and you were doing a 6 o'clock hold front sight post right there. So it looks like we would just have to move that elevation up just a little bit. With that knowledge, I then decided to kind of cut it in the middle, and this is what I got right there. So the good news is, you know, the little tiny adjustments in elevation and windage that each of us would have to do if that was issued to us, we as that 10 level, as the individual soldier or the end user, we can actually do that. We don't need any special tools. We don't need any specific, you know, armory or depot level, you know, anything. We can do that by hand and just, you know, just crank those adjustments. So, you know, if this was my rifle and I was issued it, I think I would just probably maybe give it a click or two up for elevation, give it several clicks to the right, just pretty much call it a day. I mean, that thing was very manageable. I think often we talk about World War II and the M1, that the U.S. we had the best advantage of the basic standard issue rifle compared to anyone else. But I think what also needs to be added in is a rifle that's very shootable. Recoil is honestly not that bad.
The results speak for themselves. I dialed this in, I think, at 100 when I was in Tennessee, so that's probably why it's a little low. I'm happy with my windage, really. I can't complain. The M1 Garand is just a beautiful rifle.
Oh, yeah.
It's fantastic for just how old it is and for everything that it's capable of. Man, there's really nothing to add, honestly. It's just, I think this was the right way to end the day, dude.
Yeah, it was. We were debating if we should do the M1 on chronological order or should we just save the best for last. So Range Chris said, yeah, let's save it for last. That was a really good decision to do that because, man, after the Mosin debacle, that was kind of, we were going high, we went low, we kind of finished on a good term there. So pretty happy with that. I mean, this is definitely a combat effective zone, very useful, functional, ergonomic rifle, especially for the bolt actions of its day. So definitely I could see this getting results. And again, if we ruled out any M4 AR pattern or AKs that we shot earlier, and it was just left to what would we take right now, yeah, I think we both agree. The M1 is, I would be grabbing that thing up. Oh yeah.
All right.